Alright, this is going to be a review of what we've already covered in class up to this point. If you haven't been paying attention, this won't be a review. This will be the first time you're learning this, but hopefully you have been paying attention. So this is our e-bike file that you can find on Google Classroom. And all we've done up to this point is just hide a couple layers. So the seat is invisible right now. So I'll just show you how to find those. So anything here, your screen looks a little bit different from mine. So your layers, actually have to press a button to expand it to see these buttons. I have more space on my screen because it's larger, so all my buttons are always exposed like this. So you'll need to click on the layers button to see these buttons. And then this right here is a drop menu to see all the existing layers. Now this drawing was created by somebody else. We're just using it to learn. So somebody went into the layers panel and created each of these layers and then assigned them a color and some other settings. But right now all you need to know is how to turn on and off layers. That's simply done by clicking on the light bulb all the way to the left. So I could turn the seat back on here. So that's all you need to know about turning them on and off for now. What we're going to do, start out, we're going to create a new layer so that we will be modeling on a separate layer that we create. So you'll need to click on the layer properties, which will open up another box. And again, you can see all the layers that have been created. And what we want to do is create a new layer. And these buttons are pretty small. I don't know why they made them this small, but this one has like 3 different sheets of paper stacked on top of each other, and to the right of it, this sun symbol. We're going to click on that to create a new layer, and then we're going to give it the name 3D frame. Then press enter to accept that name, and then we're going to assign this a color. Right now it's set to white. We're going to choose this yellow color so it stands out. I'm going to click OK. And so now we have a 3D frame layer, and our current layer that we would be drawing with is the one with a check mark by it, which would be the 0 layer, which is actually just a default blank layer. So we want to change, actually let's just leave it like that, and we'll make changes with the other buttons that we have available up here. So let's go ahead and close this box. And the first thing we want to do is we're going to zoom in to this area here where there's a bracket. Right now it's in red, and we're going to select it. Just select this bracket. Just click on it. And once you have an object selected, it automatically changes your current layer to that layer. So I can see that this object belongs on the frame layer, and it is a red color. And what I want to do is I'm going to actually move this object to my new layer, which is the 3D frame layer, simply by clicking on 3D frame. This is a quick and easy way to move an object from one layer to another. So you select the object first, then you change the layers, and then it will move it to that layer, and I can verify that. I'm going to click escape, and I can see now that this is yellow. If I click on it, my current layer changes to 3D frame. So that was successful. So that's an easy way to change an object to a different layer. Alright, we're going to focus on this bracket and this seat post here in the next couple lessons. So we're going to isolate those layers so that all this other stuff isn't visible. So to isolate, we're going to click on this button, and we're going to then select the layers that we want to have visible. So we want, of course, this bracket layer visible, and we're going to make this layer visible, and then also let's just do these guidelines here because we'll use those a little bit later. Then press enter, and all the other layers disappear. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is we're going to extrude this shape, and we want to extrude it as a surface. So in order to make sure that it extrudes as a surface and not a solid, I'm going to go to the Surface tab and use the extrude found there. So you can do this in either order. Either you can select your object first, then click extrude, or you can click extrude and then select your object that you want to extrude. I'm going to do extrude first. Select the object I want to extrude, and then press enter, and you can see right away that I'm going to be extruding. And you want to make sure that you go up on the drawing plane, not down below. And we're going to type in the value 17 and then press enter. Alright, now that we're dealing with surfaces, I want to make sure that we can view them in a way that's just better to see what's a surface and what's not a surface. So I'm going to change my view up here from 2D wireframe to shaded with edges. And now I can see what's a solid surface and what's not. Alright, so here we have a gap. So I have a nice barrier, but there's a gap there. We want to close in this shape. So we're going to use what's called a patch. And patch is found in the Surface tab, which we're already in. So we're going to click on the patch tool, and it's asking us to select surface edges. You can go through and select each of these individually by just clicking on them, but it's much quicker if you select the patch tool and then choose chain from the menu at the bottom. And this will select any edges that are connected to each other. So just with one click I have all the edges selected. Now to actually create the patch, it's 2 steps, 2 enters. So press enter once, then there's a bunch of menu items that you could choose from, which we're not going to, so we're just going to press enter one more time to accept that patch. Alright, now we have a surface covering this area, and then we have our side surfaces. If you just scroll over them and hold for a moment, you can see the label of surface, which is what we want. Alright, so the next thing we're going to focus on is creating this post here. We're going to be modeling this with surfaces. So in order to create, be in the right line, in line with this, we're going to have to change our user coordinate system, which is shortened UCS. So the UCS is how your basically drawing plane is set up. We want to make sure our drawing plane is in the correct spot. So first thing we're going to do is enable our grid, which is found in the bottom here, and I'm going to turn a couple things on here. I'm going to turn on polar tracking and also show snapping reference lines, and then I'm going to leave my snap cursors on. Anything to the right of that we normally will not change, so just make sure your screen looks the same as mine. Alright, so now we can see our grid is not lined up with this post, which is going to be problematic if we try to draw something. So I'm going to just show an example of how that looks. So here I have a rectangle tool. Let me draw a rectangle, and it's not in line with this post at all. So I'm going to just delete this by selecting it, press delete. So to align our UCS, we're going to first click the UCS button, and then choose from the menu down here, Object. We're going to snap to a specific object in our drawing. So click on Object, and then we're going to select any of these lines since they're all in the same parallel line. So I'll select this one here for now. And that changed the grid lines to match up with this seat post. I'm going to draw another rectangle just to show you the difference. So now the rectangle is in line with that. I'm just going to delete that. Alright, so we're going to draw a circle, and we're going to use this upper portion. It's going to help us out to create our first circle here. So the circle tool is found in the drawing group, and there's several ways to draw a circle. I'm just going to click the down arrow to show you. The default is from the center out and the radius measurement, so that's the one we're actually going to use. So go ahead and click that one, and we're going to be drawing from this point, which would be the center of our circle, out to the edge. Just snap to that end point. So now we have a circle that's in line with our grid. The problem is if I were to extrude this, it's going out sideways. It's not following this line at all. That's because you can only extrude in the Z axis. So X and Y is for drawing in 2D, and then extruding happens in the Z axis, the third dimension. So I'm going to escape out of that. So what we need to do is rotate our UCS so that Z is aligned with this post. And to show you just a visual of that, I'm going to actually take my UCS and place it somewhere. So right now we are showing our UCS icon, but it's showing up in the lower left hand corner, which isn't very useful visually right now, so I'm going to change that, and I'm going to show UCS icon at origin, and then I'm going to move my UCS. I'm going to click on it, and it gets highlighted, and there's a square where the three lines intersect. I'm going to click on that one time to grab it. Then I'm going to click one more time to place it somewhere. Actually, let's just place it in the middle here. So now you can see my X and Y plane. This is the plane that I would be drawing on. And so if I view from the top, here's my X and Y. And Z is coming out straight towards me. So I want to rotate my Z so that I can extrude along this path. So if my Z is facing up right now, I'm going to show you from this angle. So my Z is facing this way, and I want to rotate it to where it's facing this way. So in this instance, I would want to rotate along on the Y axis. So imagine grabbing this by the Y axis and rotating it with your fingers. If you rotate it this way, Z would be aligned properly. So the rotate for the UCS is found in the same coordinates group. On the left hand side is the second button down. So right now it's set to the default Y, which is what we want, but occasionally you'll want to rotate on X instead, or even Z, but we're going to leave it with Y. We're going to rotate on Y. And now we're able to rotate and get Z the direction that we want it to be. Now it doesn't matter which way Z is. It could be facing this way or it could be facing this way. You're still going to be able to extrude along the same path. So whichever way is comfortable to you, you want to look for that green dotted line. So this way I'd be rotating 270 degrees. The other way I'd be rotating 90 degrees. So the default, if I were to just press enter right now, is 90 degrees, and I can see that down here. If I were just to press enter, it would rotate 90 degrees on the Y, which would put the Z in the correct position. So I'm just going to press enter because it's the shortest and easiest method to use. So now Z is aligned with the direction that I want my post to be. So I'm going to redraw my circle. I'm going to highlight that one by selecting it and then press delete. Then I'm going to go up to the circle tool, click that, zoom in and maybe orbit a little bit. And the center is going to be right here. I'm going to go out to the edge here. And I just want to rotate to make sure that this circle is in the right direction for extrusion, and it is. That's great. The next thing we want to do is we're going to trim this circle in half. So we get a half circle. So to trim, that's found on the Home tab, and there's in the Modify group, in the upper right hand corner, looks like scissors. We're going to click on that. And the first thing you want to do with trim is select your cutting edges. So it's the line that you want to use to cut the other line. So I'm going to just select this line as the cutting edge, enter, and then I'm going to select the object that I want to trim. So I'm just going to hover over it, and you can see there's a red X that appears, and then it kind of grays out, becomes ghosty looking. So I'm going to click on this line to remove it. I'm done trimming, so I'm going to press escape to get out of that command. And now we're in a position where we're ready to extrude.